it's game over. You don't need anything else. You need what President Donald John Trump is the face of. So why do you call yourself a President Trump supporter if you don't even know what the heck he's using? This is the problem. So we're at a point now, I mean, truly, May 2026, we're at a place where if you don't believe in laws and orders, you probably need to quit. Just pick up knitting, pick up crocheting, go fishing, skydiving, hunting, hiking, travel the world. We don't need you. I mean, it's truly sad. It's truly sad how uneducated America is on something so simple. So there's two timelines going on right now. Two. You have what the target audience needs to hear, and then you hear what President Trump validates me on. Now, it's not about me, but because that's what we're doing here, because it's you and I. That is what brought me here. That's what put me here, because I'm at that official capacity. That's what I do, and a few other things that are in the works. But there's two timelines. So if you want to follow the drama, the run-of-the-mill, the daily rigmarole of what the people who've never heard me before are in, then you got that all day long. But if you're going to call yourself a patriot, you're going to call yourself awake and all these other terms, you shouldn't be looking like the target audience whatsoever. Because there is a finite blueprint in place. There is a plan, there's a strategy and tactics, and it's all full. So there's the target audience again, and then there's those who are supposed to be ready for responsibility and accountability. But responsibility and accountability won't be wishy-washy. You won't be whining, complaining, griping. You wouldn't be getting knocked off your path by something in the mainstream media or something that seems fearful or all these other things. That should show you that the people you're listening to, you don't need to be listening to anymore. They do not know what's going on lawfully. You know why they can't stay toe-to-toe with me? Because they don't have this right here behind and under this ball cap. They also don't have my credentials. All right. So what President Trump did, and I'm going to do this again. This is real simple. This is layman's terms today. What President Trump is the face of, right? He's the face of this. What they're doing is when you yell, drain that swamp, drain that swamp. When you yell that, you all yell, drain that swamp. Well, what did you think was going to happen? This is what's so baffling to true patriots out there. This is what's so baffling to your friends and family who are truly awake. We love you. I wouldn't be here taking the heat for your family and friends all the time, laying out this simple blueprint that is got daily visuals. Daily. We're at daily at this point. Daily validations. What did you think this plan would look like? Most of you have yelled your whole life, you don't trust the government, the government's this and that, yeah. Yeah, true, accurate. But we have to have one. So what can we do to make the government small, efficient, and effective for all of us? It ain't whining, complaining, griping, fussing, groaning, kicking, cussing all the time. That's the thing you claim you're tired of. So why do you keep doing it? Why do you keep wallowing in it? Why do you keep supporting that? There is a plan. I have the book. I signed the contract to write the book before President Trump put this on here at Trump International with President Trump present with photos. How is that not validation for you to go, hey, I might need to get this book? Or if you can't afford the book, guess what? It's all on my platforms for free. Which is also why it's hilarious why all these quote-unquote influencers out there, they claim that they're for you, but they never share my pages. They never tag you on my pages. They never tag me and say, hey, go follow this guy. He's official and he knows what's going on. He's a retired veteran with credentials under the Department of War. How come they never share this? Oh, that's right. Because they're opportunists. They're social media whores. They just want a name and a face. And they don't know what's going on. They can't walk the line. They can't even talk the line. They're not official. And they know once you and your friends and family come over to my page, it's game over for their little charades and the games they're playing with you. This is a military operation. President Donald John Trump told all of us veterans to remember our oath. It's a game to all these other people because they have nothing to fight for. So there's a huge difference, again, in taking information and comprehending information, sharing it with your friends and family, versus starting a podcast and starting a page and blowing up and thinking that they're official. Huge difference. Huge difference. This is what the law's about. This is what President Trump and the whole National Security and Telecommunications Act of 1934 and 1996 are about. We have to get order back in the United States of America. The whole draining of the swamp was for this. And guess what? People like me don't care. You don't like me? Well, you're still here. Funny how that works. So, President Trump signed on to be the face of this operation. All right? He knew the beginning, the middle, the end. He knew who all would be on the bandwagon up front. He knew who would jump off. He knew that people, because you fatigue. You're not a warrior. You're not a fighter. You're a griper and a complainer to the ones who jump ship. Not you true patriots. Not you true OGs. You know who you are. But we got to talk to the ones who jump ship. If you're a patriot, there's no need to talking to you right now. You already know what's going on. So you have this strategy in place. All right. You already know the deep state was going to be kicking and screaming and retaliating. Retaliation is a key word. We already knew they were going to retaliate straight out the gate, especially when they knew that everything had been taken over via military and the election of 2016. Once they knew that, it was game over. All right. So in 2016 is when we took over. See, this is why you don't get near a lobby. If you hear all the chatter in the background, they stand right there by the door and have a conversation. So we took over in 2016. That's why you've been hearing Obama, Russiagate in the year 2016. They're not talking about 2020 heavily. They're talking about 2016. I've already put on a podcast 4 years ago. I told everybody 4 years ago when they flew me out on the scene here, I said, ladies and gentlemen, 2020 was a rerun of 2016. 2016 is when we took over. Because how else would President Trump have known to write Executive Order 13848 and declare a national emergency September the 12th, 2018, which was 2 years and 2 months before 2020? I mean, it's real simple. This stuff's not complicated. So, in order to drain the swamp effectively and efficiently, you needed time to do it. And you had to do it right, you had to do it effectively and efficiently, but also you couldn't cut corners, no loopholes or anything of that nature. So there's a strategy and a tactic there out of irregular warfare and unconventional warfare. Not regular and not conventional, but irregular and unconventional. Well, guess what that means? You can't be whining, complaining, griping, fussing if you don't know a single word from a single sentence of a single paragraph of a single law. So why are so many people complaining? And why would you be mad that a retired military with current credentials, why would you be mad that there's a strategy and a tactic out of military law? Why would you be pissed and mad and angry? Why? The funny thing is, though, is most of those people who were against this 3 and 4 years ago, they're nowhere to be found now, especially some of those veterans that came on the page. Ooh, quiet as a church mouse. Because all of a sudden, there's no Title 10 or no Title 32 on paper for 4 years under quote-unquote Joe. That's a big telltale right there. That's why it's so funny. That's why it's so funny. See, people spend too much time in the comment boxes versus actually reading, studying, comprehending, and applying. Quote-unquote Joe did not have a single Title 10 or 32 funding, invocation and funding for 4 years. So how were the National Guard and Reserve components, Reserve more specifically, Title 10, how were they active daily all across the nation? Oh, they were on President Trump's orders. So when all the people complain out there that the National Guard are in the city streets, and they say that the president only has X amount of days to use those, how were the National Guard and Reserve components active again for 4 years straight and nobody said a word? Get my VA workout in. This is my new VA workout. I mean, it's this simple. So if people, more specifically libtards, if libtards are pissed and mad that the National Guard are in the city streets for a week, 1 week, and that they only have X amount of days according to the War Powers Act of 1973, then how were the National Guard and Reserve components active daily, state to state to state to state, multiple states, not in training as they do have training? How were they active for 4 years straight with not one single Title 10 or Title 32 funding from quote-unquote Joe? I mean, in reality, if people could grasp that, you wouldn't need to know anything else. But you do need to know because of the plan. So President Trump is the face of irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, government in exile, continuity government, shadow puppet government. They used a hybrid of those, using elements of both. All right, and a military government, which are all applied differently, etc. Martial law, which the president doesn't have to tell you when we declare martial law. So go ahead and take the little bottle out of your mouth and accept that. All right, you know, it's so amazing that people don't even know the simplicities of functions and applications of military and government. So you do 12 years. So you do 4 years in. 2017 to 2021 was the resetting of the legislative branch. That's when all these unique executive orders and national mercies were declared. There were already national mercies declared, so President Trump could already utilize all those statute powers. They're the same 120 statute powers with each national mercy, but President Trump invoked all these unique human trafficking, child trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, all these different things. All right, opioids crisis, all your pharmaceutical, which also tie into your drug trafficking in another relation. All right, and then all the unique orders with the southern border. All right, a lot of people thought those were just COVID orders, and that's where they bamboozled you because you think, oh, COVID, this is why they did. No, why is the order still active? See, you're not understanding the order and the action, the enforcement. All right, COVID had nothing to do with it. So if you use COVID as your excuse, then you don't know how orders operate and function. Why weren't they terminated? So you do 4 years. That was the resetting of the legislative branch. Then they pulled it back. This is where the unique part comes in. This is where President Trump pulls back. That's your government in exile, your shadow puppet government hybrid, all right, your continuity government. And there's laws outlining this. Executive Order 13961, December the 7th, 2020. Invocation of the Federal Mission Resilience Strategy, which is the continuity government. And then you have 3 days later, the most recent to this day, as we speak, May the 3rd, 2026, the most recent order of succession within the Department of War is Executive Order 13963 from December the 10th, 2020. Every president has had an order of succession within the Departments of War and military domains, except for quote-unquote Joe. How come? How come he couldn't have an order of succession? Very key. Order of successions are very key. Did you notice the article I posted this week? And they were talking about the line of succession? Why are they talking about a line of succession when most people don't even know about that? Validation. Because the most recent line of succession, order of succession within the Department of War is from President Trump in 2020. Very key. All right, so you pull him back 4 years. That's when the military funeral took place, January the 20th, 2021. Now, this is what baffles me the most. Army regulations are Army regulations. If you've never been in the Army, you probably want to shut your mouth. All right? Because we don't get these things wrong. And if quote-unquote Joe had the most votes in United States history while sitting in his whitey-tighties in his basement, he should deserve to have everything that every other president had. The oldest unit in the Army, the 3rd Infantry Regiment, known as the Old Guard, the official presidential salute battery, did not get that wrong, ladies and gents. Also, Title 4, Section 9, Flag Code, and also in Army Regulation 600-25, Table B-1. Where were the salutes? Where were the salutes from the military in uniform for the quote-unquote motorcade for quote-unquote Joe? That's Army regulations, ladies and gentlemen. And for the first time in United States history, election history, all 50 National Guard, including Guam and Puerto Rico, were in one location at one time. And they can't even salute the quote-unquote president who got the most votes in United States history, sitting in his whitey-tighties in his basement, barely did anything, barely did any kind of campaigning. Oh, if you feel stupid, guess what? I'll oblige, because you should. All right, if you don't like me because I'm a smart aleck, well, you'll get over it, because that's just a fact, and I'm supposed to be this way because I'm a retired Army veteran and I have current credentials. I'm supposed to be this way because it's supposed to be easy, and anyone who makes it complicated or says anything worse like this is bullcrap and this is that, you need to go get your CAT scan at the local wherever where they scan cats, because you're a little cuckoo. One flew over the cuckoo's nest. If you have a problem with Army regulations, this is what makes it awesome. Is you sat there witness for the first time in world history, inauguration history, they showed 2 different sets of cannons. 3 at Arlington, and they called that the 21-gun salute for Joe. That's not a 21-gun salute. So it don't matter what the headlines reads. You got to go look at Army regulations. So when you look at Army Regulation 600-25, it tells you what is a 21-gun salute. If you go over to Arlington National Cemetery.mil, which is the official military site for Arlington, all right, it tells you what is not a 21-gun salute. So you have official military sites, Army regulations in Arlington that tells you what is and what isn't a 21-gun salute. I mean, it's one thing if it was just one of them, and that should tell you enough, but when you have what is and what ain't from the military sites, and you still have problems with this, yeah. I mean, there's no words for it. None. There's no words. That was your key visual. If you were paying attention, or if you found me, that this is all theater. It's all an operation. And it's going to be fun. And it was. The dash was fun for people like me. So that was your key visual, straight out the gate. Straight out the gate, that was your key visual. and then the rest, there were only three things. Three. Look at that. 1, 2, 3. Three. There were only three things consistent around quote-unquote Joe for 4 years. Three. Insignia. Headband. The same that walked down behind President Trump on January the 20th, 2017 when he said, we're taking the power out of D.C. and giving it back to the people. And the military walked down behind him briefly for a few seconds there. Military intelligence, Judge Advocate General, those two were behind President Trump. They added one more. This one addition tells you the whole thing's in operation. This one. And it sounds like two, but it's only one. Civil affairs and psychological operations. Ladies and gentlemen, during a puppet government, do you know what a puppet government only has control of? Civil affairs. And guess who has control of the military, though? The government in exile. And see, this has already been done in history. This is why you look like an idiot for arguing it. It's already been done before. World War II, Second Philippine Republic. The actual president of the Philippines came to Washington, D.C. and was up under Roosevelt. The puppet government, not the legitimate president, Japan installed the Philippines, only had control of civil affairs, media, press, things like that. Didn't have control of the military. So you can imagine in our great United States of America, with our military as big as it is, if you don't have control of the military, you can't really do much of anything. Air Force One, Air Force Two, Marine One, Marine Two. And you United States Marine Corps, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Some of you. Your almighty, beautiful uniform that you have, and they show with quote-unquote Joe dudes in flight suits with a patrol cap? Come on, people. Get in your regulations. Get your head out your rear ends. Enjoy the journey. The whole thing's a military operation. It's a strategic, special operation. It requires reading and studying of irregular warfare and unconventional warfare. And that's the problem. People don't want to read. People don't want to study. People don't want to comprehend. People love drama. You know the people who say that, I hate drama. I can't stand drama. They're the very ones who love it, stir it up, and create it. You'd be better off not saying it. You'd be better off not saying, I hate drama. Because the people who say that, you're the walking billboard for drama. So, 4 years in, resetting the legislative, 4 years pulled back, which is a military strategy. It's a military government. It's all lawful. It's all supported by the Constitution. It's not a constitutional government. It's a military government supported by the Constitution. People have trouble hearing that. They hear, oh, it's not constitutional. It's not a constitutional government. It's a military government supported by the Constitution. And if you knew the law, you would know that the law, the highest law of the land, the Constitution, supports the military government. It ain't the military government supports the Constitution. It's the Constitution supports the military government. You know why? Because military came first in this nation. Military law came first in this nation. On January the 1st, they originally put out January the 15th, but it ended up being January the 1st if you read in the book. All right, I think it's under January the 15th. But it ended up, they changed it to January the 1st. Doesn't matter, it still happened in January. If you go back to January 2021, FEMA and DHS, under the Federal Continuity Directive 1 and Federal Continuity Directive 2, they put out a new article that said specifically, it's called the Resetting or Reconstitution of the Executive Branch. Reconstitution. If you knew what reconstitution meant, then you would know. So they put this out, this publication, right before the funeral and the government exile, Reconstitution of the Executive Branch. Do you know what that means? All right, so if you go look up the reconstitution of the executive branch, it tells you in 2-3, bullet point 2-3, it says, when a new seat, S-E-A-T, seat, when a new seat of government cannot be established in Washington, D.C., Congress, with their enumerated powers, will get with the states to reestablish a new seat of government. You know what the seat is, ladies and gentlemen? Currency. Well, you know why President Trump put this on his ball cap April the 2nd? He put it on there April the 2nd, 2023. You know what he called April the 2nd, 2025? What did he call it? Liberation Day? Alright? If you go over to history and you look at April the 2nd, 1792, you know what that is? The Coin Act. When they established gold and silver as the seat of government. I just want to put the melody to Teach Me How to Dougie on the President Trump dance. Teach me how to Dougie. Teach me how to Dougie. Teach me how to Dougie. Yeah. Baby, let's smooth. What? Can you teach me how to Dougie? Yeah. You can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. You just can't make it up. So then, you put him back in for. So you get 12 years lawfully to do what most average Americans thought had to be done in 8 years. But see, most average Americans don't know one single word from one single sentence, from one single paragraph, from one single law. It's sad. It's sad. So that's why I've been showing people this book right here. This is what you need to get your eyes on. You don't have to buy this book. It's on William Burkheimer. If you go to Google and you look up this, it's on a PDF. It's on a .org site, but it's free. All right? You don't have to pay for it. William Burkheimer. And you can learn all about military government and martial law. You can learn all kinds of things that you never knew. That, yes, the president can most certainly declare a war without the Congress. And guess what supports that? The Constitution. So everything you've seen Congress established in the last 150 years is unconstitutional. The War Powers Resolution, unconstitutional. Term limits on the president, unconstitutional. Everything, every aspect of it, unconstitutional. And it goes against our founding. That's why I tell people, you don't want to bring up the Constitution with someone who knows the foundation. Because our founders that wrote the Constitution, James Madison, you go look at all this writing in the Federalist Papers. They tell you that a president should serve as a king as long as they want. And they made sure to clarify the difference in a monarchy and a republic. A monarchy is where the king appoints himself and rules over you. And they use scare tactics to make you feel inferior. The republic is where you, the people, we the people, vote on the president as many times as we want. If they're doing the right job, then why change? All right? That's why it looks so stupid. Congress was never supposed to look like this. The presidency was never supposed to look like this. It wasn't supposed to be every 2 to 4 years we're getting ready for a new change. It wasn't supposed to look like this. You can't have consistency when you have something changing so quickly, so often. If you go back and read our founders and apply the foundation and what they wanted for a republic, it makes perfect sense to you, we the people, to vote in someone that we want and keep them there 20 or 30 years. But it's still under our power, meaning like if we get tired of them in 10 years, great, you're out of here. But if we love them and they're doing what's right by us, the people, we the people, by our needs, right? What we need, not what we want necessarily. Too many people have the wants and the needs also confused in this nation. Confused big time. Military came first in this nation. You better be glad that some of us knows what's going on lawfully and a part of this, because, again, it was a snowball headed for hell. If you get in page 30, 3, though. The character of government to be established over conquered territory depends entirely upon the laws of the dominant power or the orders of the military commander. Then it tells you over here, yes, the president can most certainly declare war without the Congress. And it tells you in here that the Constitution supports that. Then you got to go read the Constitution, and you'll see where that applies, and it's made applicable. All right? You got to get some military law in your life. Now, what's cool about it is our military law is written to where it applies to any situation. Our military law, and then hear me out again, our military law came first in this nation. The Constitution supports this. The law of war supersedes the law of the land. The law of the land is the Constitution. That's the highest law of the land. Then you have laws under it that's been passed, but they're to replicate the Constitution. That's what Marbury versus Madison 1803 is all about. Any statute that looks like a law that doesn't support the Constitution is void. Lawmakers have taken over this nation. The judiciary branch took over and started controlling the legislative, and half of the legislative branch were lawyers all these years. So what happened? They started overpowering you, the people. And then what did the people do? You put too much trust in them because of their quote-unquote titles, and then guess where we are? We're where people don't appreciate laws and orders from a guy who's not a lawyer. I know more of their laws and orders in vote right now than most lawyers do. I was on a podcast not long ago, and a constitutional lawyer was on there, didn't have a clue what's going on, and I smoked them. They didn't. Do you think they shared that on their page? Nope. A constitutional lawyer now, and didn't share it on their page because they got smoked by someone who's not a lawyer. That's why you should love people like me. You should actually love me in a good way, because I don't care what people think. I'm here serving beyond my service in an official capacity, a cool capacity, and I got the books to prove it, and where I signed them and who I signed them with. You should actually love that. You should love a smart ass like me. All right, because I'm smart, and I'm an ass, and I'm a smart ass. All right, so there's that. So if you look at this right here and this right here, get this book in your life too. Sorry for the glare, but get this book in your life by Colonel William Winthrop right here. Colonel William Winthrop sat down and had a debate with General Sherman. All right, on military law and precedents and military government, martial law, etc. This guy, William Burkheimer here, he was a witness of that debate. Now, it was a healthy debate. They didn't argue with each other. It wasn't what you see today and people doing whatever. A general and a full-bird colonel. And this guy here felt like that the colonel presented more valid points than General Sherman. You remember they called them Shermanites? So this is what came out of it. And these two books are in every military lawyer's hands. This is a key thing to know. Very key thing, these two right here. So if you want to screenshot them, go ahead. These are not secretive. These are all public. Go ahead and get them. Instagram, there you go. Screenshot them. Now again, they're on PDFs. You don't have to buy the book, but if you're someone who wants the book, but they're on PDFs. The .org sites are actually credible, so you can access those on .org sites, and you can read them and study them. So when you apply military law on the land, they don't ever specify a land. They just call it a territory because it can be made applicable on any territory anywhere. Now, we just so happen to be running it on our own nation because of the hostilities. And you heard President Trump call that out in 2020. He started proclamating that in 2020. He said, we've been invaded, we've been invaded, we've been invaded. Our gravest threats are not abroad, they're within. So see, when you have a proclamation way back here and you get all the way down here, and hindsight's 2020, well, it's supposed to be. He made those proclamations back then. So you got to know what's going on And what too many people are doing, you're falling prey to people who are surface level people who have no clue what's going on, because you know why? You know why they don't know what's going on? Because they've never been a part of this. They've never been in the military. They don't know the strategies and tactics. They don't know layers. So, it is what it is. You know, that's why you need me. All right? You can't have an opinion when you have zero knowledge on what's going on. That is not called an opinion. That's called stupidity. All right? So that's what makes the Midnight Rider so special, is the fact of I have been writing the documents. I've been tracking what President Trump was doing from 2016, 2017, so the campaign, what he said, and then 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. I published these things. You can still see them, called the documents.info. I have not updated those since 2022, but you can see them. They're free. And I had published those in January 2021. Then I went viral on the video August 24, 2022. And, you know, was confirmed by the Department of War. They intercepted it, which I already knew this because I already knew what was going on. Telecommunications in a wartime situation outlined as a military government, which is what this is. This is an outline. This is your visual of an outline. That's why I always say put quotations around it like this, or put parentheses like that. Just like that. This whole thing's an operation. This is what people are so confused about. This is not a real presidency. The whole thing's an operation. So, telecommunications is a part of a wartime presidency. It's part of a national emergency. So that's why you got to know the power of a national emergency, and that's why you got to know the difference in the abuse of what Congress did in 1973 by overriding a presidential veto and passing that. See, no one challenged it back then. So what we're doing is taking all their abuse and using it against them. So it's like a reverse. When you reverse a code out, you got to reverse things out. Well, what the reversal would be, showing it to the people that this is what we're doing, and all of a sudden the people going, wait, 60 days and 30 days is all the president has with the military? Yeah. So who are complaining right now about Iran? 60 days. Oh, they're saying the time's up. So see, even though it's theater, for the people in the target audience that don't know it's theater, they have to see it that way, because now they're seeing all of the abuse for the past years. Now they're seeing, wait, we were in war for how long with Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, etc. And we've been in Iran for 6 weeks and people are complaining about it. So see, people have to see that. Unfortunately, people have to see it. And if you're awake, then twiddle your thumbs. Go do something. Fish, hike, get off the internet. You don't need the internet. So those books that I don't have any on me because I sold out in New York, but The Midnight Rider, Rides Again, they stem from what I had written back here from 2016 to 2021 and published January 2021 for my friends and family that knew me back then. So when you hear people out there say they've been awake for years, or especially if they put a year on it, they say 2017, 2016, there's no way. There's no way you were fully awake. There's no way I could write those books until I had the full outline of every single law that they were using and every single order invoked. That's another way you can find out who is a prima donna or a social media whore. They'll use, oh, I've been awake for years. Well, how come you didn't write the book? How come you don't have the page that's duplicated the most by so many frauds and scammers? If they were awake, then they would have had all the answers that I have in my books that outlines what's going on. And President Trump validates it daily. All right? So that's also why it's intellectual property. See, everything that I did has not been made known to you by President Trump yet. It will be. It's being made known daily in driplets. But when it's all said and done, there will be validation of the whole thing, because that's what that is. But that's why my books are intellectual property, and that's why my pages, this page right here, these pages, guess what? They're federally registered for educational purposes. So anybody who duplicates my work and don't give credit to me, they're actually violating the law. And you know why my pages are here and thriving? You know why I've not been taken down? Because I'm official. You hear people like Alex Jones on this, people, oh, the FBI is taking me down. Why would the FBI be taking down a podcaster with the First Amendment? Because what they were doing back here. And see, some of you, you still support these people because of this right here. I've told you from day one, don't support me right here. You don't have to support me right here. You know what I have? I have the goods. I have the law, the orders, the credentials, veteran, and then also I provide all the receipts for you. And I don't throw crumbs at you. And there's no reason for the FBI to be an official capacity door because they already know who I am. All these people, they know who I am. Don't think that they haven't been called by a bunch of idiots out there. Oh, this Derek Johnson guy, he's doing this. People are dumb enough to do that. No one's been at my door. You know why they're not at my door? What does that say? Does it say U.S. Army retired? Oh. And thought I'd do the Oompa Loompa dance. For 4 years, I didn't show you this. For 4 years, I never showed you these. For 4 years, on purpose. Think of all the stuff I've taken on the chin. Look at all the people who try to steal my federal trademark, which is a Class C felony, by the way. They found out really quick when JAG and the Office of Special Investigations knocked on their door and told them, think you want to come with me? They found out really quick. This also goes to you out there, though. Your friends and your family for calling you crazy. And I'll say, hey, tag me. Show me. I'm official. People question for 4 years. Who are you? How can you know what you know? But all you had to do is go read and study the laws and orders and go, wait, how does this guy know all these laws and orders? How does he know the full blueprint? How did he put all this together? If you'd have been reading, studying, comprehending, you'd have had an inclination to go, whoa, there's something. This guy knows the full plan, the full blueprint. How does he know this? So see, consistency is a key thing. President Trump, he's been talking about China and everything for 45 plus years consistently the same way. President Trump told you in 2020, the cure cannot be bigger than the problem. Take the word cure out if you get a problem with it. Put the word resolution, solution, solvent, answer. Whatever word you want to put there, it works. The resolution cannot be bigger than the problem. The solution cannot be bigger than the problem. The answer cannot be bigger than the problem. And guess what? So many of your friends and family and some of you out there watching, guess what you're still doing? You're making everything bigger than the problem. President Trump told you, we have it all. We've caught them all. Way back in 2020, he told you this. Oh, that's right. You little soft pansy asses, you can't handle it because you hadn't seen arrest yet. Because you have little faith. You don't know how many indictments there are. You don't know that everything has to be done lawfully. No loopholes. If we loophole something, guess what ends up happening? We do the same thing that the swamp did all those years. And then what ends up happening? The people that we're supposed to be winning over, to show that, hey, the economy's not supposed to look like this, the presidency's not supposed to look like this. All those people we're supposed to win over, they still stay in the same what? Hateful, spiteful modes. And you never get rid of this. And you know, when you never get rid of this, guess what happens? You still stay angry, bitter, mad, frustrated, argumentative over things that don't matter. Because you wouldn't know the law either. Because you all would still be out there butting heads over stupid things that don't matter. We have an education problem in this nation. Because too many people love drama, and you want something, and you think there's got to be 4 trillion laws for one problem. When I've already shown you all the laws that are invoked right now, daily. That's why it sounds repetitive. Because this is exactly what President Trump's working with. This is exactly what this is. It ain't difficult. So many people make it difficult. So what ends up going to happen, though, is you get all these moving mouths out there, moving lips, and they're all a surface level this. What they're doing, though, is they're misleading people with a bunch of bullcrap. Then they're trying to water down what I'm doing or take away from what I'm doing instead of bringing people over here. So whenever everything's coming down from the top down, as President Trump says, we're going to give the power back to the people. So when everything's coming down from the top down to come to the people, well, guess what most of these people are going to be? They're going to be defiant or pushed away because they have a bunch of idiots out there who don't know what's going on, all for health products. Oh, get my supplements. There's 4 trillion kinds of supplements out there, ladies and gentlemen. Study your own. Research your own. You got all this people out there. Oh, you got to trust the plan, trust the plan, trust the plan. They don't even know what's going on. They can't even field a single question. Go watch the video from this past weekend in New York. They all up there speaking, and then they get on a panel, they can't even field one single question. It's called inconsistency. Before I ever speak, ladies and gentlemen, guess what? I can back it up. And the way you tell it is you got to go read, study, comprehend it. Real simple. So if you love President Trump, you should be seeking to know what he's working with. So like the economy. The economy is never supposed to be a presidential flex. It's supposed to be working for all of us at all times. Now, there's going to be things that happen where you're like, well, why is the gas so expensive for Iran? Well, if the president went in with a magic wand and went, boom, guess what you would do? You'd want that every time. You wouldn't want to have life. You would expect the president to go in every time and go, well, boom, 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 like a drum set. Toot, 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 toot. And you would never contribute. We would still have all the same companies, and you would expect them to do what? Well, that retail price is way too high, and your wholesale price, I know you're making. You would always have what? An opinion on the wholesale and the retail. And you would never want to do what? You would never want to pay the person for their services or their product. You would expect it to be at your cost always. Man. So you heard President Trump this week say he became president 3 times. And he says it with unique terminology. He said, I became president 3 times. 3 terms. Then he talked about the cognitive test he had to take. He said he took a cognitive test 3 times for the presidency while he was president. You got to listen to the terminology. Now, if President Trump was a former president to the target audience, why would he be taking a cognitive test as a president? Pretty simple. So there's like so many things. There's a few things that just show the whole thing's in operation. If you're president, you'd have the same power as every other president. You could hate them, and that's a strong word. You could strongly dislike them, That's okay. You can have your opinion over there in that category. But if quote-unquote Joe was president, he'd had the same power as every other president, meaning he could have terminated tariffs, he could have revoked executive orders, he could have called on the Supreme Court to review executive orders for constitutionality. You know, go, well, I think I like this, but I don't know if that's constitutional. They can review that, kick it out if it is. Then you have these things called national emergencies. The national emergencies, very key. In 1973, Congress overrode President Nixon's veto, 2/3 vote, and passed the War Powers Act. Naturally, they call it the War Powers Resolution then. They didn't call it an act. It was so controversial they had to go back and change the word to it because most people opposed it at that point. Well, why didn't they abolish it? Because it's unconstitutional. But they made it to where a president had to declare, so he had to, for 60 days, right, he has 60 days that he could use the military to declare a national emergency. He had 60 days to use the military. Then a 30-day wind-down period if Congress didn't declare the war. All right. Which, again, if you go read what's supported by the Constitution, the president can most certainly declare a war temporarily for hostility's sake, right here. And the Constitution supports this. That is written in law that the Constitution supports this. And that's what this is. Once you read and study all the things I've put together, which is the intellectual property, but when you read and study what I've put together, that outlines the military government in the Midnight Rider Rides Again Part 1 and Part 2, and a Part 3 coming because we're not finished. I got to do the finale because I've been contracted to write that. All right, and I've been doing that. I've been keeping up the notes daily. So when you look at the War Powers Resolution, it's unconstitutional straight out the gate. If Congress is doing what they're supposed to be doing, if the president's doing what he's supposed to be doing, and the judiciary is doing what they're supposed to be doing as co-equal branches, then they wouldn't be overshadowing each other, and you wouldn't have a senator trying to be a representative, or a representative trying to be a judge, and a judge trying to be a president. All right? Real simple. This is why people need to know the three branches of government. So, right now you have people complaining, the media, quote unquote, they're all under wartime orders, ladies and gentlemen, 47 U.S. Code, Section 606. It's a wartime presidency. All right, you got to know that. Who just validated that? Jesse Waters just said that again on air just this past week, or 2 weeks ago. Wartime president. The whole thing's a wartime presidency. So when you go look at what people are complaining about right now, the 60 days, one, they're showing the hypocrisy. So that's straight out the gate. Because Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Bosnia, Kosovo, Somalia, Lebanon, and we can keep going here. All right. So when you look at the original laws of these books here, you look at the original military application. All right. You look at military law and precedents. When you go look at the original, supported by the Constitution, the War Powers Resolution is unconstitutional. So one, they're showing the hypocrisy of the deep state. Two, you got to go look at Title 50. And I'm going to read it again. I always read it off and break it down. Section 1550, which was part of the NDAA of 2020. It reads like this. Not later than 180 days after December the 20th, 2019, and every 180 days thereafter, the President shall submit to the Congressional Defense Committees, the Committee on Foreign Relations of the Senate, and the Committee on Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives, a report on actions taken pursuant to the authorization for use of military force against those countries or organizations described in such law, as well as any actions taken to command, coordinate, participate in the movement of, or accompany the regular or irregular military forces of any foreign country or government when such forces are engaged in hostilities or in situations where imminent involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances during the preceding 180-day period. So see, it says not later than 180 days and every 180 thereafter. Then it says like a safety net down here during the preceding 180-day period. So see, you got to understand what that means. It's covered from all angles. Why did they put a date in here? Why did they put December the 20th, 2019 in an overall Title 50, Chapter 33, which Chapter 33 is your War Powers Resolution? Why did they put a date in there? You know what happened on December the 20th, 2019? President Trump established the Space Force. The Global Fragility Act was passed. You need to go look it up, read about it. And then also the Courts Martial Handbook was updated that day and published, and a few other things. No coincidences. But then you scroll down and watch this. You scroll down here, and it says Codification. Section 1550. Section was enacted as part of the National Defense Authorization Act for the fiscal year 2020 and not as a part of the War Powers Resolution, which comprises this chapter. It's telling you that this is strategic. That Section 1550 is temporarily until the actions of the military of the president ordering them is done and completed. Because it's saying it's not part of the War Powers Resolution. Now watch this in the bottom. Executive documents. You've heard me break this down before, but I'm going to break it down again because it's so important to what's going on right now with Iran. And when President Trump says, I don't need authorization. Memorandum of President, July 19, 2021. So if you do your math, July 19, 2021, for the target audience who thought all this was real, that would have been, quote-unquote, Joe, 5.5 months in to his first year for the target audience. So why would he be relinquishing all authority and the power of the, watch what it says, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Section 301 of Title III, United States Code, I hereby delegate to the Secretary of Defense the authority and functions vested in the President. Very key. All that other is normal. All this other you'll find in the War Powers. You'll find that verbiage. This is where the unique verbiage comes in. It says vested in the President of Section 1285A through E of Public Law. Guess what 1285A through E is? Section 1550. On the use of military force and support of partner forces to the Congress. Well, Section 1550 already clarified this, that the President should report to the Congress every 180 days. Then it says codification. This is temporary, which means it's not for future presidents. Then it's saying, quote-unquote, Joe is relinquishing all authority and power to the Secretary of Defense. Section 1550, the president of 1550. Now go back to Executive Order 13961, Continuity of Government. 3 days later, Executive Order 13963, which is your most recent order of succession within the Department of War. Who is the Secretary of War again? Department of War? Secretary of War? Yeah. So beautiful. It's a military government. Then you got to know what a military government is. You'll hear people out there, these quote-unquote experts, they're not experts because they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know how to apply it. They'll say, oh, you know, the military will take over the elections. And they still talk as, when is the military going to take over the elections? Ladies and gentlemen, the military's already taken over the elections. The National Guard, cybersecurity teams have been deployed in 14 to 39 states. 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024. We've already taken over the elections. You're already seeing the military government. When you heard President Trump, October, in Madison Square Gardens, when he said, the Great Liberation starts in 9 days, which would have been November the 5th. The Great Liberation begins in 9 days. The Great Restoration begins January the 20th. Ladies and gentlemen, the word restoration is in the law of land warfare, specifically tied to a military government. That's it. You're watching the most biblical, historical, monumental operation on our soil, territory. And if you go read the Law of War Manual and read about a military government, read about a military law, it'll tell you about the hostilities. President Trump proclaimed that way back in 2020. That was a proclamation. We took it over. We're cleaning it out. We're draining the swamp. It's already drained. And then it tells you about abandonment. It'll tell you about a puppet government. What is a legitimate government and a puppet government. And this book right here outlines that as well. And then it'll tell you, real quick, see if I can find it. Let me see here. As the army advances into rebellious territory, a hostile may be replaced by a loyal magistrate and the provisional government established to preserve order and administer justice until the courts can be reopened on return of peace. It is true as such war is not prosecuted with a view to conquest, but to restore the normal condition which the rebellion interrupts. The right to employ the force for the purpose indicated might be thought to cease with suppression of the rebellion. It must still, however, be in the discretion of the legitimate government, President Trump, if successful, to determine when the war is at an end. Also, whether the insurgents are sincere in their submission and intend to renew the contest at the first favorable opportunity. And while this uncertainty continues, military government and occupation may be prolonged on the ground of necessity. Now, once you comprehend all of President Trump's proclamations and his verbiage, which outlines a military government, plus the laws and orders that outline and put them all together, which is the intellectual property, but then when you go over to the Law of War Manual, if you knew to look for this, and I broke this down to you, if you knew to look for this, all right, from July to January 2025, from July 2024 to January 2025, the media showed you this, that Joe abandoned D.C. They used the very specific terminology, abandoned. You know why words matter? Because that's how law operates. Law is a written discipline. Words matter, grammar matters, punctuation matters, terminology matters. Abandon D.C. Go look in the Law of War Manual. It's specifically tied to a military government and the belligerents, the rebellious territory that we're talking about, the insurgents, etc. And it specifically says when the conquest is abandoned. You can't make this up because all the President Trump's, all of his language, the target audience hears, oh, we got to win the midterms and da-da-da-da-da-da. But then he's talking about a white flag of surrender, puppet government, capitulation, occupied country. He's saying all these terms that are straight out of the Law of War Manual. Ladies and gentlemen, those words have no purpose to an audience unless it's a proclamation. Because they're not federal anything. And in an audience who don't even know what they are, why would he be using terminology straight out of the Law of War Manual? And I can show you the outline and how it all pairs together in a chronological order. Why would he be using that if it was for nothing? And how can I show you a chronological order of a blueprint? See, all I do is subtract out all the normie stuff, all the target audience. I subtract all that out and show you the chronological of the military. And so for your family and friends out there that think you're crazy and all this, no, they're dumber. Sorry. They're dumber than scooping soup with a toothpick. All right? And you just have to tell them that. You just have to say, look, you know, you're dumber than a frying pan on a buoy. You just have to tell them, you're dumber than turn signals on a 747. Sorry, you're just dumb. I love you, but you're dumb. You want to argue with laws and orders that I can absolutely show you makes an outline on the military side, which you should love and appreciate the military even more. You should love and appreciate the military, that we have actual laws that supersede the Constitution to save your rear ends because you're dumb. You're dumber than turn signals on a submarine. You're dumber than a GPS on a kite. I mean, what do you want to say? What you want me to come down to your level? Because you're dumber than a parking brake on a unicycle? I mean, I don't know. It baffles me. You know, you think that we're supposed? Oh, you want me to dumb it down to you? No. Like, this is so simple. It's not difficult. I mean, these people truly are. They're dumber than a kickstand on a tricycle. I mean, they truly are. You know, it's insane. They're dumber than a giraffe on a hot air balloon. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it personally. Like, okay, so let's forget who I am for a moment. Forget about the books and where I sign them and who I sign them with. Forget about all the imagery. Forget about these badges I just showed you, the official badges, retirement, and also official Department of War. Forget about that for a moment. Just forget about those, because those aren't credible. I mean, they're obviously from President Trump's Department of War. I mean, forget about the fact that I get a monthly retirement check and monthly letter from the Wounded Warrior alumni, and I get a monthly letter from DFAS and all these other things. Forget about that. What do you think the president works with? And why wouldn't you want him working with laws and orders? And why wouldn't you want the military personnel knowing military laws and orders that you didn't know about? Why wouldn't you want that? Let's go to common sense or logic, one or the other. You got to have something. If you don't have logic, and let's say, so if you don't have logic, but you have common sense, well, common sense should tell you. But if you don't have common sense, but you have logic, one or the other should tell you, well, if you don't have either or, that means you're dumb. I mean, we got to call a spade here. We got to bring some words back. So if you're not dumb and you don't want to be called dumb, then you probably shouldn't reflect being dumb, right? So this stuff's not difficult. It's actually awesome, and you should be so dang proud of not only the United States military, but also President Trump. This is what he put his face on. He put his children, he put his grandchildren, he put his life, he put everything on this. This man could, we're talking about a man who's I think people just forget about this. We're talking about a billionaire. I mean, even if he'd have been a multimillionaire, even if he'd have been a millionaire, the guy can fly anywhere in the world he wants. He can play golf all day anywhere he wants. He can do whatever he wants. And this man said, you know what? I like playing golf. I love playing golf, and I'm a pretty good golfer. But you know what? I think I want to be shot at. I think I want to be called all kinds of names. I would love to see my head with no body, with the blood and the gore. I would love to see my head up there on a platter. People, whoa. We're talking about a man who was a billionaire who could have just rode off to the sunset. We're talking about a man that predominantly all the people who hate him now loved him. I mean, we're talking about world history draining the swamp of corruption and people who lie to you, who will look you right in your face and lie to you, and turn around and go right behind your back and steal from you, your mama, your daddy, etc. And they lay in bed at night and smile and grin, and they're okay with it. And not a single one of you benefited from it all these years. You're working 2 and 3 and 4 jobs out there. You're being taxed for a tax, for a tax, for a tax, for a tax. And you don't want that drained. You don't want someone who's retired military who can sit here and show you credentials. You don't want that. You don't want someone who can show you military law that you never knew about, applications of law that supersedes the Constitution. You don't want someone who can show you this. You're not appreciative of that. Sounds like you need your own island where the only aid you get is powdered milk and dry food. That sounds what you need. But who am I? I'm just a guy with the official badges and the official #1 best-selling books that outline the whole operation, that also help you get rid of all the drama, all the prima donnas, and all the opportunists out there who lie about being monetized. They say they're not monetized. They are. They most certainly are. They're lying. There's all kinds of people out there trying to trick you and deceive you. And to them, it's a game, because they're civilians and they have nothing at stake. Retired veteran here. My whole family, lineage, heritage, mine alone. My brothers and sisters in arms, their brothers and sisters in arms, their family members and their lineage and heritage. It's a huge difference. Highly suggest that you follow this page, follow all my pages. Everything's for free here, but remember, you got to go back. This is a chronological order page predominantly, so you got to go back, read and study, and catch up. Or you just need to get the books. I don't like I said, I'm not here to be a salesman, but at the same time, you got all the information on all of my pages. So make sure you're following the correct pages. There's a lot of frauds out there. Linktree, linktr.ee/1776nation brings up all my pages. All right, everything is free on here. All right, I can't make you buy shirts. I can't make you buy books. So be careful who's hating me out there. These people calling me a grifter and all these things. How am I a grifter? Everything's free on my pages. How do I show you where everything is? These people didn't have to buy the book. It's all on my pages. So when you hear people out there, there's particular ones out there that you're still following, a lot of you. They never tag me. They never share any of my stuff. They copy and paste it. They steal it. Oh, they love stealing intellectual property. They love throwing their people crumbs. So who is and who ain't? Who really is and who ain't? They can't show you any of these because they ain't got them. And the whole point of President Donald John Trump, again, is to drain the swamp. So you cannot support this. You cannot support